Welcome back. I'm the doctor, Bob Lee, and our next guest is the executive director of the WESPAC, WESPAC. It's a foundation. She joins us to speak about all of the peace and justice work initiatives and what they're doing in our community. Please welcome to the show, Nada Khader. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Tell us about the wonderful work of the foundation.
Okay, WESPAC stands for Westchester People's Action Coalition, and we started in 1974. We're a 46-year-old center for social justice in Westchester County, just north of the Bronx. But our work actually reaches well beyond Westchester County.
Yeah.
And we work on a whole range of racial, social, economic, and environmental justice issues and topics. It's very rewarding work. It's difficult work. It's all about building community power to make positive, progressive social change in all these areas. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed serving as the director for the past 19 years.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service. Now, your organization also works with BLM, Black Lives Matter. Tell us about it.
We definitely support the movement for Black Lives. From the very beginning, when I started at WESPAC, it became clear that a big part of social justice work in the United States must be addressing systemic and institutional racism and anti-Blackness that permeates institutions in the United States. And WESPAC latched on to the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They're one of the leading institutes in the United States that offer trainings on undoing racism, trying to understand what is racism, developing a common vocabulary that we use to talk about racism, and then thinking through strategies to overcome racism. And really what that means is looking at the outcomes for Black people in the United States, looking at graduation rates, looking at maternal mortality rates, infant mortality rates, looking at who's being locked up in the prison system in the United States, looking at access to employment and decent housing, and all these areas that are essential for a decent way of life. And asking ourselves, why is it that when we look at this social economic data, Black people are not enjoying life as much as white folk are in the United States? And that has to change. And so our whole work is towards racial equity in all these different systems.
Yeah, and what are some of the things that we can do to begin to make that change?
Well, it's not easy work. What we're doing in Westchester County is I'm part of the leadership of the Anti-Racist Alliance, and we're in conversation with county government and local municipal governments to get them to join the GARE, G-A-R-E, and that's the Governmental Alliance for Racial Equity. And it's basically making a commitment that public tax dollars will be used in a way that's moving our society towards racial equity, in a way that's moving school systems to benefit all children, including Black children, so that we do not see the discrepancies in graduation rates. We do not see discrepancies in school disciplinary matters. So it's well known that Black youth are punished and disciplined more severely for engaging in similar activity that white youth do in schools. And this is not correct. So just bringing all these issues to light and talking about them, meeting with stakeholders, meeting with administrators, superintendents, municipal leaders, county officials, and then looking at data, because that's really what the work is about. So when we see progress being made in data, then we know that we're making progress in our work. And if we're not seeing progress, we have to go back and say, what's going on here? What's not working? What's the root cause, doing a root cause analysis? And how do we do what we're doing differently to have different outcomes? Because if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to be getting the same outcomes.
Yeah. And the members are currently involved with criminal justice reform and police accountability. Speak to that. Yeah.
Well, WESPAC is part of the Justice Roadmap 2021, and Justice Roadmap is a statewide campaign it's a campaign to decarcerate the prisons and jails across the state of New York, to reduce significantly the numbers of people who are in jails and prisons, especially at this time of pandemic. And it includes a whole platform of what we want to see accomplished in 2021. And that includes releasing our elders, releasing aging people in prison who are eligible for parole. It includes ending solitary confinement, which the United Nations defines as a form of torture. If a person is in solitary confinement for more than 50 days, it's considered torture, and we're still doing this in New York State. Really, I mean, of course, what the social justice community really wants is a deep transformation of our criminal justice system. Because if you really look at what's happening and the conditions of incarceration, I tell people that our system appears medieval compared to what other countries are doing with criminal justice reform. You know, a person might not have mental health issues going into a prison, but coming out, they may have mental issues. They may have been attacked, assaulted, degraded.
Yeah.
Locking people in a cell, I mean, you know, you can look at some of the Scandinavian countries. People who are serving time are not locked into rooms. That's not part of their sentencing. You know, it's a very different awareness of, well, what is it? And also for people who haven't done anything violent and they're still locked up, you know, like for substance abuse, we're saying a person with a substance abuse issue, that is not a criminal matter. That is a public health matter. They need treatment, they need assistance. So just by focusing on that, like we have 2.2 million people across the United States incarcerated. Perhaps half of them are incarcerated for nonviolent offenses. These people should not be locked up in cells, serving these horribly long times. So automatically, we could very quickly reduce the population by half. And then if you look at the other half, the remaining million people who are incarcerated, with appropriate community supervision, you could probably release another quarter of that population. So if you're looking at people who've committed, you know, serious violent acts, whether murder, whether rape, whether serious assault, people sometimes may need to be separated from the general population. I fully recognize that. The point we're trying to make is, what are the conditions of this separation? Is this really a place where a person can heal themselves so never again do they consider harming someone in such a manner? Is that really the purpose of our system? And that, to me, should be the purpose, to try and help a person heal. And that can involve a restorative justice process, a transformative justice process. So our vision is really very benevolent. Of course, we want to protect public safety. Of course we do. The general population, we must protect. Yeah. But we also need to help people who, for a whole range of reasons, perhaps they came from a very difficult childhood, perhaps they experienced trauma, and we know people who experience trauma, if that trauma is not addressed appropriately in their lives, it can play out in very unhealthy ways.
Yeah, and finally, you're working on to end militarism and drone warfare and the struggle for justice, equal rights, and human dignity for all inhabitants of Israel and Palestine.
Correct. We also get involved in foreign policy matters. But before we get to that, I just want to touch on the police accountability, because that's been huge this year in terms of the killing of George Floyd.
Okay, we got about a minute left. Go ahead.
Well, I'm part of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. I serve on the White Plains Task Force for Reimagining the Police. It's important work. It's ongoing work. It's not going to be resolved overnight. But I believe with the continued public interest in police accountability, we're going to see some really positive changes moving forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We enjoy the work that you're doing in our community and bringing light bringing to light all of the issues and things that your organization is working on. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you so much, Bob. And thank you for inviting me on your show.
Yeah. Is there a website that we can go to experience more?
Absolutely. It's wespac.org, WESPAC.org. And we're a short train ride away from the Bronx.
All right. Nada Khader, Executive Director, WESPAC Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You
Stay
too.
safe and God bless.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break right here. Come back. When we do that, Bobby C has the latest in the world of sports. That and more next on Open.